So one of the last teams, or one of the teams who we've been waiting to actually announce their World Cup squad, because there had been plenty of intrigue around it, Sri Lanka have at long last announced their World Cup squad, featuring a couple of notable comebacks, you can say, and one major miss.
One big major miss, rather two if you would ask. Of course, the first one is the obvious one, and we'll be talking about that extensively over the next few minutes. But not just Wanindu Hasaranga, Dushmantha Chameera also misses out. So two bowlers that Sri Lanka would really have wanted to help them in the World Cup campaign. Well, Dasun Shanaka, who is the designated captain for the upcoming World Cup, will not have the services of two bowlers he would usually resort to or turn to quite a lot. That in Chameera, Dushmantha Chameera and Wanindu Hasaranga.
Absolutely, but otherwise they have gotten, of course, remember there was an injury scare to Mahesh Theekshana as well. He had gotten injured towards the end of the Asia Cup campaign. He's been named. So before we actually go over everything, we'll just quickly rattle off the names that have been mentioned. Of course, it's a 15-man squad, but there is a reserve player as well. Yeah. So starting from the top, you've got Dasun Shanaka, of course, the designated captain, Kusal Mendes, the vice captain. Then you've got Kusal Perera, Pathum Nissanka, Dimut Karnaratne, Sadira Samaravikrama, Charit Asalanka, Dhananjay De Silva, Dushan Hemanta, Mahesh Theekshana, Dunit Walalage, Kasun Rajatha, Matisha Patrana, Lahiru Kamra, Dilshan Madhushanka, and of course the travelling reserve is Chamika Karnaratne. That is the squad.
So that essentially is the squad you're looking at. You're not looking at because the deadline anyway is day after tomorrow.
Yeah, 28th September.
So you don't expect Sri Lanka to make any changes. Frankly, they're not playing any cricket at the moment as well. Unlike, let's say, India, Australia, and at the moment New Zealand playing Bangladesh.
And even England are having a series, but then that's their second string team playing Ireland.
Exactly. So ODI cricket has come to a halt. Let's say you're only looking at a 5-day halt because, of course, the Cricket World Cup starts on the 5th October.
Correct.
Not too far away from.
Don't forget, you'll have warm-up matches also happening before that.
So again, this was the time for teams to, and the boards also sit back, see what can be their best possible 15-man squad for the World Cup, and this is what the Sri Lankan board have now tabled as far as their final 15 for the World Cup are concerned. Some names, definite first starters, these guys will be there, and if you follow the Asia Cup closely, you can be very sure of names like Shanaka, Mendes, Kusal Perera, Nissanka right up top opening. Though we saw that one change though in the opening that Sri Lanka made later in the Asia Cup. Karnaratne has also been included. Samaravikrama showed very good form in the Asia Cup. So did Charit Asalanka. Now what happens is, and probably let's just talk about this aspect now. How can Sri Lanka now make up for the loss of services of in particular Wanindu Hasaranga? He really would have liked to play on the tracks here in India, we know, and as Kiran Moore has suggested, you could, because of the monsoon, you could look at some grip for the spinners at the start of the tournament. Now, how do Sri Lanka make up for somebody like a Wanindu Hasaranga? In essence, you really cannot, if you ask, because Wanindu Hasaranga, with what he does both with the bat and ball, especially his trait with the ball, cannot be replicated by any of these gentlemen that you see. But what Sri Lanka can do now is turn to somebody like a Charit Asalanka, and now Walalage will really have to now up his game. He's still very young, but these two will be the guys who will have to now fill the void for Hasaranga, as you saw Sri Lanka turn to them in the Asia Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think Walalage probably would not have played as many games if Wanindu Hasaranga was fit during the Asia Cup, but of course did well there. Of course, there were times where it was pretty evident that this is still a 20-year-old you're dealing with. Unfortunately, now part of the World Cup squad will in all likelihood be a part of the playing 11 as well, because again, plays a similar role. Is a left arm orthodox, so the traditional ball to a right-hander would be more or less the same as that of a leg break bowler. Does give you some good batting lower down the order as well, but of course, Wanindu probably the biggest miss for them, no two ways about it, especially when you consider the kind of form he had been in. Remember, we kept joking about the fact that in the Lanka Premier League he had won highest run getter, highest wicket taker, captain the winning side, most sixes
and whatnot.
So he was in great form. Unfortunate for them that they're missing out, but otherwise also I think another major factor when you're looking at the Sri Lankan side, the form of their captain.
That is woeful. It is woeful. Plenty of single-digit scores, by the way, from their captain Dasun Shanaka. A couple of reckless shots as well we saw from him during the recently concluded Asia Cup. Now Sri Lanka frankly, they are without one of their finest players now. Now the big question is how do they then progress to the let's say business end of the World Cup? How do they make it to the semi-finals? Remember, you're playing against teams like India, Pakistan, Australia. Let's not forget England. So for Sri Lanka, of course, if you ask, and truth be told, it doesn't look like a squad at the moment that can challenge the top 3, top 4 at the moment. It's going to be taking something special from the Sri Lankan side to make it to the top 4, if you ask me.
True.
But if it has to happen, Dasun Shanaka, given what we saw from him, let's say not too far back, only last year in the Asia Cup, where he single-handedly won Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka, beg your pardon, a couple of matches single-handedly, you will need Dasun Shanaka to find his form, and he needs to do it rather quickly.
He needs to do it now, because again, if you remember that even during the series that was happening in India, he did give you a couple of good knocks from the bat. In fact, he almost won them one particular match. So it's not like his loss of form has been, say, a long time, in the sense that it was only this year you can literally pick out good performances he had. But ever since that tour of India, his form has just fallen off a cliff. I remember after that tour, a lot of us were clamoring saying he needs to get an IPL contract.
Yeah,
he did eventually get one as a replacement player.
But remember, he wasn't picked in the first 3 rounds. He wasn't picked in the first round. Only after the IPL had started, he was
drafted in as a replacement for Kane.
Exactly.
Kane Williamson was the player.
Kane Williamson. So that is what his fate was in the IPL. But otherwise, we know he is a proven match winner.
Yeah.
He'll again be batting in that lower middle order for Sri Lanka. But going forward, we'll have to assume a lot of responsibility. If you ask me, the Sri Lankan side will need him to really get into top gear if the Sri Lankan side is to punch above its weight.
Absolutely.
Right now, this squad, it's a good squad. I don't want to be mean to them in any way, but I think the other teams in the competition, if you were to just look at their squads, let's say in India, England, Australia, at the moment, this squad, or even a Pakistan, I don't think they can challenge these sides enough at the moment.
No, I agree. Again, if you're looking at who of the sides are expected to compete, the top 3. So in England, India, Australia, not necessarily in that order. The 4th spot is the one that's up for grabs. Are they better than New Zealand, South Africa, or even a Pakistan? No, that's the thing. That's where it's really challenging, because on paper and based on what we've seen from them in the Asia Cup, I'm not that convinced yet.
And you would say that, okay, Sri Lanka did beat Pakistan very recently, in the Asia Cup, but let's not forget that Pakistan really turned it on when it comes to the World Cup. Sri Lanka, what score was that? 7-0, 8-0, what is it?
Yeah, they've
never beaten Pakistan in World Cup fixtures. So that's how long it's been, and that's how big the gulf is between the two sides when it comes to the marquee tournament. So it's not going to be easy. Don't be carried away, I would say, with what you saw in the Asia Cup. But having said that, this side does look a good side. Having said that, you've seen teams, and it, often is a strength at times as well, when you don't have that pressure of having a star-studded lineup. It's helped teams in the past to go a long way in the tournament.
True.
Sri Lanka, though, the one thing I would like to see from this squad going forward is that they stick together and they kind of deliver the kind of goods that you saw from them earlier on as well. So that's possibly going to be the one way that they're going to move forward and really excel in this tournament, and that perhaps be work as a unit as you saw them work in the Asia Cup and the last year's tournament as well.
I think they'll need to really channel that similar spirit which they had in 2022, because again, if you look at that time, similar conditions, no one really had them in for any kind of a spot in let's say, making it to maybe the Super Fours, of course, was a given, but everyone is expecting that the final would be an India-Pakistan final. That was always how it was going to be, and that is what most people were expecting. You remember even Mohammad Rizwan in one of the press conferences had said that, an India-Pakistan, like the Asia Cup is basically like an India-Pakistan 3-match bilateral series. So in that regard, a lot of people underestimated Sri Lanka then, and truth be told, a lot of people are doing it now as well, because I'm sorry, this squad inspires no confidence in anyone. I'm pretty sure even die-hard Sri Lankan fans would in fact be, looking at this with a little bit of worry, saying, yeah, you know what, it doesn't look like one of those squads that can be competing for top honors. At least right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. But again, upsets do happen. We've seen New Zealand more often than not be written off, then up their game considerably when it comes to ICC tournaments. Pakistan are somewhat similar. Again, 2022, who can forget their run to the final? It was just absolutely amazing. Most people didn't think it was going to happen, but it did happen. Can Sri Lanka be able to do that? I mean, we don't know, but stranger things have happened in the world of cricket. So whilst it's not entirely a write-off, and to be fair, this is a very settled squad, it will take a lot, let's say, for this side to be punching that high above their weight that they end up making it all the way to the top four. Top four does seem to be a little bit of a, let's say, problem in that regard. I mean, but again, as I said, you can never really say never, but this squad, it doesn't really inspire that much confidence in this, let's say, how it is the team plays. Not quite there yet, but again, as I've said, honestly, it does sometimes, not having expectations can really play to your advantage. What we'll do now in this particular instance is we'll take a few questions. Since I see a few of them coming in, we'll take a couple of questions. Sports Heart believes that we are in for an India-South Africa final. That happens, it'll be very interesting, because you've got South Africa, who for years have not been able to actually get their hands on an ICC trophy. India currently going through a mini drought of their own, so who really knows? That would be an interesting final. But South Africa are, let's say, one of those teams who can cause a little bit of an upset, if I think it really comes down to any team causing an upset, more so than Sri Lanka. So we're at the comments now.
Yeah, let's just quickly dive into your comments. Sports Heart says
I
South
already took that
Africa
one.
versus India final. Okay, that's a sporty shout, I would say.
Very sporty shout.
Shakib to miss World Cup, Rahul Basu is saying. I'm not too sure though, Rahul, where you got that from. We get to get that information.
Yeah.
And,
can we scroll up? Take some of the comments up top. There were some there. Let's see.
What is Dex saying? What
He's
was
saying
the drama that's been happening inside the Bangladesh camp? Why have they yet to announce their World Cup squad?
You don't have to. What the squad that you're announcing right now is technically a provisional squad.
Yeah.
Technically, your finalized squad is what comes after that. So
exactly, and see, you have been given a deadline, Dex, so it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to submit your squad well in advance. The time is all yours. So you can do it. Let's not forget India with the Asia Cup squad. They did it at the last possible hour.
Oh yeah.
They did it at the last possible hour. They
because
were
waiting for KL Rahul's fitness.
KL Rahul's
In fact, even the World Cup squad, they delayed the announcement, remember, by like a day or so.
Exactly.
We had gotten inside info that it would be announced a day before.
A day before. It was supposed to happen on a Sunday, I remember. But
September 4th, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly. But you pushed it to the Monday, to the day after that, because you were still awaiting, because KL Rahul had to play a simulation match here in Bangalore. So you were waiting for that. Only on the last possible day, the last possible hour, did the chief selector and Rohit Sharma declare the squad. In fact, it happened in Delhi only, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So there's no hard and fast rule, Dex, that you've got to do it much in advance. Not totally can be done at the discretion of the team, as long as you're not breaching the deadline.
In fact, Anurag makes a similar point that we were saying, that Sri Lanka's batting doesn't seem good enough to maybe challenge the big teams. Yes, their bowling can still actually do some damage on a given day. It is the batting that does concern me.
True. I think that's going to be the worry as well for them, given what had happened in the Asia Cup final. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen again and again, but perhaps it's that unpredictability about the Sri Lankan batting order, and that's where I understand that not always do you need big names and people with big reputation to be there in the side, but when you're looking at a landslide moment or a spell like that, that's where you need those big characters, and
Absolutely.
that's what perhaps they don't have at the moment.
Absolutely. So that's the Sri Lankan squad for you guys. It is, as we said, it's a consistent squad. Looks like the core is very settled. Unfortunately, not one that strikes a lot of fear into the hearts of people. But that's just what we think about it. What do you guys think? Well, let us know in the comments. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell icon. Follow us across social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Download the AajTak app and stay tuned. We'll be bringing you lots more from the world of sport. Right now though, from Harshit and me, bye-bye.